So hello guys and welcome back. We have again another deck tech wannabe for this kind of archetype existing in the current standard with Duskmourn. So I call this build as the mono red aggro, not the turn 2 kill version, because I know that kind of deck is what we think as very imba per se, but I think we should also appreciate some other uh, deck builds that are not really longing for just, I might call it as boring or not, but you can still go with the traditional mono red aggro, just curving out and killing opponents with the spot or burn spells, or just attacking for the win. So this build is like just again not really a, we can call it as an original list. I've seen a reference of this from a previous build way back in Lost Caverns of Ixalan when it was still new in the format. But this version has somewhat reminded me to bring it back as a reference because of some new card components that we can use from the Duskmourn House of Horror set. So we're going to view this one. Just a quick rundown of the card types. We have 27 creatures, 11 instants, and 22 lands. That's basically it. So let's check on each of the card components. We're going to start off with our 1-drops. So similar 1-drops as we intend to use in some of the other red deck win decks in the format. So we have again 4 Monastery Swift Spears, 4 Hard Claws, and 3 Heartfire Hero. So these two are basically the usual suspects in the turn 2 kill build, but with the new inclusion of Hard Claw, this goes in a long game kind of setup because you can pump out your extra mana to make it a 2-3, a 3-4, and so on and so forth. But the important thing is that with this kind of damage effect, 1 damage to target opponent whenever a lizard, 1 or more lizards attack, it's going to go with the synergy of this card, the Orzhov Axonil Deepest Might, which is his ability that having this one red source you control with the amount of non-combat damage less than or equal less than the Orzhov power, it would deal damage equal to the Orzhov Axonil's power instead. So instead of dealing 1, you would deal a chunk of 4 damage to your opponent's life total. So the other synergy here that we goes with this deck are some of the choices here which we can have. The 2-drop, for example, here the Razor Keen Needlehead from Duskmourn would also goes with the synergy of the Orzhov attack, because its ability that punishes opponents that draws a card, they will be dealt 1 damage to them, making sure that their card advantage would not really that advantage when instead a liability to their life total. And also it's a 2-2-4-2 that can also protect itself with having a first strike, which can be efficient for most other 2-2s for your opponent's board. So having these 4 copies in the deck, since this is not also legendary, is essential to have this on the curve. And also along with it, of course, is Slickshot Show Off. We can also need a good evasive haste creature that can also benefit from the pump effects or casting non-creature spells and can also be platted. For your 3-drops, you can see that the only 3-drop in this deck are your copies of Screaming Nemesis. So this is a 3-cast 3/3 spirit with haste, so also another hasty creature that can deal damage. Is dealt damage. It can deal that much damage to any other target. So that means that it is like a Boros Reckoner kind of setup. But the benefit that if a player is dealt damage this way, they will not gain life for the rest of the game. So another potion also that can do some kind of a mini combo in the build is having this one and Witch Stalker Frenzy. At any chances you would not be able to use that, you just target your Screaming Nemesis with this one and it will deal 5 damage to your opponent's life total by redirecting it of the 5 damage. And for the other kind of a setup, which we need also to not having only a turn for Odger Axonil, but also not having a body and having to give them haste through Enduring Courage. So this mythic card from Duskmourn would also generate you a good 3/3 attacker, but also gets your other creatures +2/+0 and haste until end of turn. And in the dice, it become also an enchantment, which also benefit that removal on it would not really be that helpful. It just only prevent it from becoming a creature, but the benefit of having +2/+0 in haste would also get your other threats very efficient and also a good attacker from this kind of setup. So that is your 27 creature lineup. Let's check on the instant choices. So we have, of course, Lightning Strike, damage to the dome, and also can pump up any prowess effects. Monstrous Rage, of course, because it would benefit most of your 1-drops and 2-drops. The Swift Sphere, the Slick, the Show Off would also gets pumped, and having this one also as a monster token or monster roll token attached would have it more gets +1/+1 and has trample as a other benefit. It can be hard to deal with in the mid game. And for the other spot removal, which is the Witchstalker Frenzy, which can be considered instant, will get to benefit in killing off Shieldred and other heavy toughness threats or blockers from your opponent. And with this kind of hasty creatures, it makes sure that the casting costs would really cost less for each of those attackers. And I've decided to also add a one of in the deck, main deck of Untimely Malfunction. I believe this instant would be very beneficial in the current standard metagame, because it can destroy opposing forge or any equipments that may have, or even artifact creatures, and can also change target of spells or its instance. Spot removals can be changed target, or burn spells can be returned back to your opponent. And having your opponent's blockers can't block this turn would also benefit you. And if also 2 targets, for example, if they have only 1 target, you can have the other target added to Heartfire Hero, for example. So Heartfire would get also a pump because of it becomes a target of a spell. So that also some of the mini shenanigans of this deck. So make sure that each of these instants has its role and function well for this build. And finally, for the land, I've chosen 22 lands. That's basically having basics of the mountains and 2 rock face village that can also benefit you by targeting your lizard or mouse in this deck. So you have lizard in Hardglow and mouse in Heartfire Hero to pump them and also make them haste until end of turn. So an added benefit that make sure that it would not affect your curve. It would also not to come as to play tap, and can also cast for your other spells and maybe even for your sideboard potential card choices. And last but not the least, to check on the average mana curve. We don't really mind the color since this is another monocolored deck build. Average value is 2.11. We have very having a lot of 1-drops and 2-drops in this build to make sure that you can have a good functionality, that you can basically be a good tuned deck by having only 3 mana. And the other bonus is that you can go mid game with Odger and Enduring Courage as our main threats in this build. And do we have any tokens? I'm pretty sure we have. Only the monster roll token from Monstrous Rage are added for your reference to use during your gameplay. And I think that is pretty much it for this kind of deck build. It's pretty much a simplified kind of version of a non-turn to kill of a mono-red aggro. If you have seen a similar build or have tried these new cards from Duskmourn, just let me know in the comments, as we can have a discussion on this and maybe compare our deck builds to yours, and maybe see some changes for this archetype. And of course, sideboard changes would also be, I would be happy to discuss it with you. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you for watching this one. Another featured deck for Duskmourn Standard, the mono-red aggro with no turn to kill version. Don't forget to like, subscribe, notifications on, and see you guys on the next upload.